Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and Happy New Year to you guys. Welcome to the Commander's Briefing. And Commander's Briefing by right is actually something that I do very exclusively for the Patreons, Coffee, Locals, Boosty members, people who pay money. So they will get the full extended version, and then I will have a shorter version that is then posted on YouTube on the main channel for people. So recently I also did some review videos using the Commander's Briefing things. Basically it's just me, the commander, or this is the title you guys gave me, to give you some briefing of what I see. And so that's the concept of the Commander's Briefing. I basically brief about what I see. So a lot of this series will likely to be about Twitter, the things I see on Twitter, or now you know it as X. And of course, I may also do some review of other people, other YouTube channels, the videos that I see, or the speeches that I see. For example, the last one that I've seen regarding Zelensky. So yeah, so it's just a mixed bag of me giving my impression of what things is. So Happy New Year. So this is the picture that I created for the New Year wish, which is both of them is me. This is the Giga Chat version, and then this is the female version. And actually this looks a little bit like my mom when she was a lot younger. A little bit, not entirely, but a little bit. So I'm kind of surprised the semblance. And also just for those that do not know, the DPA Open Mic speaker of the year is Von Vestas. This is actually AI created with a face swap, and yeah, something because the in the open mic the resolution is much lower, and then of course he's wearing his normal clothes, wearing a cap, so something to make it look like something like a proper award. Then of course we have Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, winning the Person of the Year award, in case you still do not know yet. So another one is actually Iran P. So this is the Discord member of the year. So he was voted as the most popular member in the DPA Discord. So Iran P. So this is a few of the award stuff that I actually do for the community, just to make things fun and interesting for you guys. And so let's go on to the first thing that I want to show you guys is actually this video. So in case you may not be able to see it clearly, so this is actually a cruise missile, a Russian cruise missile, and something unusual about this cruise missile is that the cruise missile actually fire flare. And so while it's near its target, it started to fire flare so that surface to air missile system cannot intercept it, and then it hit its target. And this is very interesting because it seems like a very obvious thing to do, but no one ever kind of actually implemented. Like, yeah, having countermeasures on missiles does make sense, but why are we so surprised when we see this? And I'm really surprised when I saw this. This is actually a screenshot of what Tenda posted. Tenda is actually a very pro-Ukraine OSIN guy, which I don't follow per se. The post was actually in March, 17th of March. He wrote that because the Russians did all this tiger tooth kind of thing that prevents tank barrier. He called this the Tabaron. This is a Cope Tabaron. And he said that this Cope Tabaron is not going to hold the Ukrainian troops for even 5 minutes. And 9 months later, we know that it totally have kind of made it really difficult for the Ukrainian forces. The Ukrainians themselves started to use it the same. So the Ukrainians started to do their own version of this, basically copying whatever the Russians are actually doing, which is kind of hilarious, considering that the pro-Ukrainian guy did call it a cope. Another tweet that's interesting is actually the People's Liberation Army actually have this new unit. So they have motorized water ski, allows them to just surf quickly like a speedboat towards the coast, and actually you can launch very quick amphibious assault. But clearly these are all special forces. So this is interesting to me. Kim Jong-un basically made the statement, according to the Zlati 71, saying that he no longer considers the unification of the Korean republics possible. South Korean have this unification by absorption or uniformity of the system as a state policy, which then contradicts the North Korea's plan to be one people, one state, two system. So what he wanted was like, maybe like a federal country where there's actually two states, and then they are run and governed separately, but they are one country. So that is the aim for North Korea. But for South Korea, the aim is actually to eliminate the entire of the communist part of the Korea. I don't think North Korea wants war because they can't really guarantee victory. Just like South Korea. South Korea did not really take North Korea out by force because they themselves also not sure if they can actually win a war against North Korea. So this is the thing. And for me, I feel like reunification of the North and South Korea is kind of pointless. They have grown apart for way too long. They are totally different country, different people. In fact, I would say that they even have different culture. They may have a similar heritage, historical heritage, cultural heritage, but they no longer have similar culture. They are very, very different in kind of people. So that I think unification makes no sense. They should just go on as two separate countries. I tell you something very interesting is that the Korean name for North Korea is actually Chaosun or Chosun. In Chinese we call it Chaoxian, and in English it's actually Joseon. Joseon or Chosun is actually the Kingdom of Korea, the old name for a very, very, very long time. This is interesting because after World War II, the name was actually Chosun. And then because of the Civil War, it broke apart. The North Korean continued with the name Chosun, but South Korea actually took a different name. They call themselves Daehanminguk, which is the Great Han Country Republic. So Daehanminguk, or Hanguk. In Chinese, we call it Hanguo, which is the country of Han. So in that sense, actually, if they just go separate ways, North Korea just call themselves Joseon, and South Korea just call themselves either Korea or Hanguk, and just go their separate ways as two different countries. They are more different than East and West Germany. So I think name change is very important to eliminate the use of North or South Korea, but just call themselves Joseon, Chosun, or Korea or Hanguk, like two separate different countries, not using North and South. I think that's the best way forward towards. If you continue to call yourself North and South Korea, then of course the automatic thing to do is to become just one Korea. The same thing as East and West Germany. If those days during the Cold War there's no East Germany and West Germany, it's Germany or Prussia, then I don't think they will ever reunify as one country. They will just be two different countries. The eastern part, maybe they changed their names to Prussia and decided to we move the capital to somewhere else and not share a capital with West Germany. So then they become their own country, and then then reunification actually would be pointless. The territorial changes in 2023 in the Ukraine war, the orange is the Ukrainian advance, the blue is the Russian advance. At the end of the day, in 2023, the Russians still captured more grounds, and this is a surprise after the Ukrainians spent this much military capital, political capital into their counteroffensive. In the end, if we just look from the 1st of Jan all the way to the 31st of December in 2023, the Russians still captured more grounds, and I think that's quite a whammy if you ask me. So then we have this big situation regarding the Belgorod attack. A lot of pro-Russians very angry, and my first reaction is still the same as usual. Is always it's a war. People die. In every war, civilian dies. Deliberate, is it a collateral, or is it an accident? It makes no difference. There's just no difference. The people die. The person died. Someone's father died. Someone's mother died. Someone's daughter. Someone's son died. So regardless how they die, it makes no difference because they are dead purely because of the war. And so that's why, in terms of my position is always to avoid war. Don't go to war unless you have no choice. And if there's no victory in sight, you can't really win. then surrender is actually an option, because if not, people will just die for nothing. For Jeroman, he replied that no, that there is still a difference. He said that the war crime is still a war crime, but to me, all killings are the same. No, all killings are crimes. So if the Ukrainian bombed Belgorod and Russia actually decided to stop their offensive, then because of the Belgorod, because they do not want more of such things. It's the same thing as the Houthis attacking the ships or the cargo ships. And then the belief is that Houthis attack the cargo ships, then Israel will end its war in Gaza. If this logic works, and it actually caused the stop of Western support for the Israeli, then it caused the population support in Russia to stop to support the Ukraine war, then perhaps this has become a justified military operation, and then it becomes a strategically genius decision to actually attack Belgorod. And if it succeeds in ending the war, then it doesn't matter if it's a crime or not, because it becomes a military stratagem. It becomes a strategy to actually win the war. But of course, if the Belgorod attack just brings about the more critical counterattack, then of course, there's nothing special about it. It's just war. Just like when the Crimean Bridge was attacked, Russia responded with a massive missile strike. Yeah, that's about it. It's just war. It's just part of war. So if the shelling of Belgorod caused civilian death, and then that's still part of the war. Ukraine did it for some strategic reasons. Whether is it sound, whether is it hopium. So Jeroman replied, no, this is just a level of hopium, which is basically the same thing I talked about the Houthis, attacking the ships and hoping that this will stop Israeli attacks in the Gaza Strip. Of course, that is hopium. The war is pretty much lost on the very fundamental sense. I don't think that it's possible for Ukraine to win the war right from the beginning. So they can cause as much pain as possible on Russia, but I don't think they can win the war. Whatever military strategy is largely based on hopium. So, but even hopium is still part of war. Just like the Ukrainian crossing at Krinky, they are holding a bridgehead over there, or the counterattacks we are seeing in Serbiansky forestry over at the Orekiv sector in the Zaporizhia front nowadays. Those are pretty pointless in the grand scale of things, but they still hope that it can do something, and that's hopium, but still that's part of war. So that's how it is. So so whether it's a war crime or not, it's very subjective. So this is my first response. I say war is war, people die, and that's how it is. Of course, there will always be people who get triggered, because whenever I say this, when I said this early in the war, and the pro-Ukrainian people are very triggered. Now the pro-Russian people are very triggered. But the thing is, it's the same position. In World War II, strategic bombing was a legitimate military strategy, and cities are bombed in World War II. The military consideration is to demoralize the civilian population in order to bring about a surrender. Jeroman did say that didn't we learn that carpet bombing cities is now a war crime? But the problem is, war crime suggests that there is a law, suggests that there is actually someone that will enforce the law, and there will be a court, then there will be justice to be served by a higher authority. But when it comes to country, there is actually no higher authority. The ICJ is actually not a higher authority. The ICJ, the International Court of Justice, is basically just a place where two countries can find a common ground and make some kind of a trade and a division that the mutual parties can be agree with. It's just a settlement tool to settle differences. It's not exactly a higher authority. It's not. United Nations also is not a higher authority. Americans are always called the world police. It's purely because they are the most powerful country in the world. They were the only superpower since the end of the Cold War, and thus they have the power to enforce whatever they believe is the law. So it doesn't mean that it is the law, because they themselves don't follow international law. So law can only be imposed or implemented when you have a higher power, and there is no higher power right now. Definitely there's no higher power than Russia. Russia do not have a higher power. Ukraine perhaps. No, there's a lot of superpowers that may not side with Ukraine, which this war is part of it. The breaking of the Minsk agreement is one of the reasons why Russia is now in Ukraine, because it is an enforcement of the international law. It's an enforcement of the agreement that was broken. So when we come back to war crimes, how are you going to punish something for war crime or anything? War crimes can only be punished by who? It can only be punished by the victor. Only the people who wins the war have the power to set up, court martials or some kind of a court system, martial system against the loser of the war, and punish them for the whatever war crimes that the loser have committed. The winners will never accept and will allow any kind of international court to implement war crimes on their own people. That is never ever going to happen. It have never happened before, and it's purely based on the country themselves if they want to enforce certain discipline into their military, and thus they will actually punish soldiers that breaks discipline. It's not even law, it's just discipline. So no, there is a lot of moral and ethic conundrums when it comes to war crimes. So if the consequences is only going to be decided by the victors, then there is nothing special. That is just norm of war. All wars end up is only decided by the victors. History books is written by the victors. There is nothing special. This is my point. And of course, this is very triggering for a lot of people. So the key point is that, I don't like the concept that people argue about war crimes. Just like in Israel Palestinians cases, when we talk about war crimes, and then people get distracted away from the macro situation. Why is there a war at the first place? If there's no war, there's no war crime. So my concern is that once people start to get fixated about war crimes, like in the Israel-Hamas war situation, where people just very concentrate on the civilian death caused by Israeli military, then people thinks that these things shouldn't happen in war, and then task based on this logic that in a war there will be no war crimes by default, then they will start to think that war is a solution to solve problems. Exactly what Hamas did, exactly what many of the Palestinians think or support Hamas for, exactly why Hezbollah is being supported or have popularity, exactly why now people is supporting Houthis, because they think that this is acceptable, because they don't expect overwhelming and outrageous extreme response, because war crimes is illegal. Nobody's supposed to do war crimes. Then they will be wrong. So this is why I say no, don't fixate yourself into war crimes. Any killing of civilians is part of war, and if you bring war in, then you have to expect war crimes to be committed by both sides, particularly by the more powerful side. That will happen. So when people start to realize war will be at the doorstep when they start it, then they will consider more carefully whether to accept the risks and consequences that comes with conducting a war, which is exactly the example that I was talking about Houthis, Hamas, and Hezbollah. They conduct their military operations for whatever good excuses. But if all the people who support these groups realize that if you start these wars or these attacks, and the response by Israel or United States or any other country can be overwhelming, and it would almost certainly means severe humanitarian crisis, severe humanitarian problems, severe civilian deaths, then people will start to reconsider, if starting all this military operation at the first place, is it a good way to solve problems? Because now people think that whatever Houthi is doing is a solution to stopping Israel. They think it's okay. Just like, the October 7 was seen to be okay by some group of people. And people think that Hezbollah firing at the borders of Israel is okay. But there is consequences. The consequences have not come yet. So, and when the consequence is there, are you able to accept the consequence? If you cannot accept the consequence, then you shouldn't have encouraged such military operation at the first place, because there is no such thing as war crime. War crimes are only decided by the victors. So no, expect war crimes not to happen in war is opium. So that's my point. There is this news of Iranian weapons being delivered to Venezuela. So this is very interesting that Venezuela have this Iranian weaponry. But of course, this is Iran Observer. He's so far, when I read his stuff, sometimes he's quite exaggerating. So don't take it with a pinch of salt. And finally, the last one would be this. This is kind of funny. Terror Alarm basically posted this on the 29th of December. Posted that if NATO does not immediately declare war on Russia and attack Moscow, then Kiev will be occupied by Russia by the 2nd of April this year, 2024. I think that is very bullish. I don't think the Russians is capable of reaching Kiev by April. Firstly, unless they are willing to take severe losses in terms of manpower, I don't think 4 months is enough to take Kiev. I think it will take longer, a lot longer, at least another year of fighting before this war will end. And I don't think the Russians are desperate for Kiev. Imagine they fought Bakhmut for months. So how would it be possible to capture Kiev in 3 months from now? So I don't think so. So anyway, this is the commander's briefing for the 1st of January 2024, the first video of the year. So I wish you guys good health, prosperity, good luck, and have a great 2024. I'll see you guys in the next update.